Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of Wind Down with Kev. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day, whether you're watching us on live stream on IG, Facebook, YouTube. You are appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Special thanks to all of you who have already hit the subscribe and notification button. And if you haven't done it already, if you like the content we create here today, please click below, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can be aware whenever we create more great content like this. Also, big thanks to my sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect. Could not do it without them. Well, with that being said, today we are traveling to the great state of Florida, and we have an amazing agent that I will introduce you to. He is a big-time winning All-State agent. You name it, he's won it. All-State Leaders Forum, Honoring, Inner Circle, Pinnacle Elite. I don't know if they're coming out with awards in the future. He's already won them all. He's that kind of agent. He's a wonderful family man. He's a giver to a community. Most importantly, I'm honored to call him my friend. Wind Down with Kev audience, put your hands together and let's give a warm welcome to Greg Blanchard.
Hey guys, hey Kev, good to see you.
Great seeing you, brother. How you doing today?
Doing fantastic. It's 90 degrees in February in Florida. Can you believe it?
I love it, man. And thank you for throwing that in my face. And since we're starting there, I wore this New York Knicks hat especially for you because I see you online, Miami Heat, Miami Dolphins. I'm sure you would like, I figured you would like the Knicks hat.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah, you and all the New Yorkers that come down and visit every snowbird season. Yeah, we love it.
so, Greg, talk to me. Man, I love what you're doing down there in Florida, and I'll ask you about South Carolina later. Let's have some fun first. Talk Miami sports. How awesome is it for what you're doing down there, getting to go into games? I see you rocking the boat. Tell me about that Florida life and that 90-degree weather you have today while I'm walking through the snow.
Yeah, guys. So, I'm a Floridian by nature. I was born in Miami. There's very few of us natives that are in existence. Everybody else is from another part of the country, or for the lack of a better term, another part of the world. Miami is an ecosystem full of energy and passion. And there's a lot of young professionals and go-getters, between F1, the Miami Boat Show, the Miami Heat, the Miami Dolphins. There's an eclectic community that's really interested in being the pinnacle spot around the world for people that wish to visit and live inside such an amazing city. So I love calling the 305 my home. It's awesome. We love it.
I love it. Let's keep talking about the 305. I heard a couple of years ago that the mayor was trying to make Miami the next Silicon Valley. How is that going? Do you have some of the high-tech companies that are coming down there?
Yeah, I mean, high-tech, they're all moving here in droves, and also the financial markets too. Ken Griffin moved a lot of his headquarters, from New York actually to West Palm Beach area where I live in. Miami is about an hour south, but South Florida obviously has got great weather. It's a tax-friendly state because there's no state income tax, so there's a lot of opportunity for the workers and the corporate environment to be able to come down here and function and work in such a great part of the country where there's no snow. I wouldn't always say no snow because we just had, snow for the first time in 30 years in Destin, which is kind of weird to see snow on sand. That was kind of awkward. But but you got tech coming from all over the place, South America, Israel, a lot of innovators in that space. And of course, you've got a lot of influencers to come to Florida because that vertical for influencers is rampant. You see a lot of content that's pushed out between the clubs in Miami and the water and the ocean and the beach. So it's just a natural breeding ground for creativity and content.
Man, Greg, I love it, man. You're making me want to get out of the snow today and get a ticket and get down there, man. You're making me want to get down there like right away, like right now in the middle of this podcast. I'm ready. I am sold. I'm sold. I'm sold. So, Greg, let's talk about what you love about being an Allstate insurance agent. You are one of the elite in the country, not only for your own agents, but you are a major mentor and influencer to agents across the country. So let's just put it out there, who you are and what you do. But talk about what you love about being an agent.
Yeah, I think, my history goes back to, geez, you're talking 1987. My mother was working for State Farm. And at the time, she actually was working with Glenn Shapiro down
Wow.
in Tamarack, Florida, inside the claims center. And, of course, Glenn used to be the president of Allstate a few years back.
Yes.
But I think the key for me is protecting things that matter most. And we know that, unfortunately, everybody's going to pass away. So you need financial planning and life insurance inside the household to protect your legacy. Everybody drives a vehicle, so you need, automobile insurance. You have to live in a home, so you need home insurance or renter's insurance. And if you got a motorcycle, a boat, if you got a business, there, general liability. So I think the intriguing part of insurance to me is that everybody that I would come into contact with is a prospect, right? Everybody is a prospect. And that availability to have access to 100% of the market for me just means that I've got a lot of opportunity out there. And we represent a great brand. Allstate, I think, is over 88 years in business. And when you think of the term Allstate, you think of what? Security, protection, the good hands people. And, it's a company that's going to be around. And I think that sense of security, carries through in the community, and all the things that Allstate does, from, as being a Ray Lynch Award winner, the helping hands inside the community, and grants for, any type of nonprofits that are out there. So I think it's the gift that keeps on giving, because you're always pouring into others. And it's more of a moral, obligation, I think, as an insurance agent in your local community, to make sure that you're doing the right thing all the time for your customers and for your team members too.
Greg, I love it, man. I could not have answered the question better myself. If I wasn't an agent already, your answer would make me want to become one. Greg, you mentioned your mom and you mentioned life insurance. I think you shared a story with me one time and with others about how your mom's life insurance was part of your launch in getting into the business.
Yeah, Kevin, you got a good memory there. Yeah, my story started in the insurance business. My mom, unfortunately, had passed away from Lou Gehrig's disease, which is, as you know, it's ALS, and there's no cure for ALS. She was 56 years old at the time that she passed away. And I think the thing that really astounded me most about my mother's legacy is the fact that she had the forthright to be able to think about, her sons. And she left, a life insurance policy that was in my name and my brother's name. And what we did with the proceeds of that money, we split the money. And half of that money, I took my half of that half, and I put it towards college tuition for my 3 children at the time. I've got a couple more now, but that's my way of saying thank you, Mom. That was her last love letter to me, in the form of a life insurance check. And then the balance of that money that I had, I basically started and opened my Allstate insurance agency with every penny that I had. And if it wasn't for that last love letter, in her legacy, I wouldn't be sitting here in front of you today. So, kudos to my mom to be able to pre-plan and make those smart decisions early on, when she was young and healthy, to go ahead and get a life insurance policy.
Greg, I love that answer. Thank you for being transparent and sharing that with everyone. Let's keep talking family connections. I did a post the other day. I posted the book, Who Moved My Cheese? The author's last name is Blanchard. And you hit me back and you said, Kevin, do you see the resemblance? Talk to me about the connection. We didn't get a chance to talk.
Yeah. So Kenneth Blanchard is my great uncle's cousin, 2 generations removed. So a lot of people ask me that question. I met Kenneth Blanchard one time with Jack Canfield, and who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul. Yep.
Yeah.
Another one of my favorite books of all time. But yeah, there's a connection and lineage there. And as you know, Kevin, I come from a very, very, very large family.
Yes.
So, and every 4 corners of the world, I think we have some type of connection out there with the Blanchard name. That's for sure.
The good news is you travel and you get out to see them. So it's a large family, but through travel, I can't go into insurance without thanking your son for his service, what he's doing for the country right now, serving in Anchorage. And I know that at every step along the process, from him joining the service to graduations, I know you've shown up at every location that he can. So let's talk about your son, then we'll pivot back. What branch is he serving in, and what's he doing right now?
Yeah, so he's in the Air Force in Anchorage, Alaska. He's stationed at J Bear, and he's been stationed there going on 2 years now. So this will be his second summer in Alaska. Super, super proud of what he's doing. He works in kind of surveying and like kind of the CBs in the Navy, where they go in, they put facilities, infrastructure. They do, surveying, make sure that the ground troops have all the things that they need, from housing to sanitation. And he's kind of an engineer by trade, so he kind of works behind the scenes. Although I think he wants to get his pilot wings eventually. He's doing a really, really good job, stationed in Anchorage and protecting our country at the same time. So kudos to him. He's married with his lovely wife, Erin, who live in Anchorage, but they're both from Florida. They lived in Orlando and they went to college here. And then he decided that he wanted to be in the Air Force and serve his country for the greater good. So super, super proud of him.
You thank him again for his service. And we talk about who moved by cheese and dealing with change. You can't deal with more change than
there he is, right there.
than going from being a Florida kid and serving our country in Anchorage, Alaska. So whatever changes, if you listen to this podcast, whatever changes you're dealing with today, it doesn't get more difficult and more challenging than that for the greater good. So thank him. Greg, let's dive into Florida. You are one of the lead agents in the country. First time I ever heard from you. You're one of Craig Wiggins' webinar, one of the weekly seminars. You're teaching the rest of us all the things you do with direct mail to reach customers and grow your business. We're going to come back to that in a second, but where I really want to go, talk about what's unique about being an insurance agent in Florida and all of the risks that we can imagine that you have to protect customers from.
Yeah, that's a really, really great question. And that goes back to, I guess you could really go back to the antithesis of really, what happened with the Florida Building Code in 1992. As you know, you're probably the elder statesman like I am. We can tell by the gray in our beards. So that kind of took place after Andrew. I mean, the landscape changed. And at that time, Hurricane Andrew was responsible for, back in those days, $32 billion worth of losses. And the Florida Building Code had to change. They had to make recommendations and changing to the building code to be able to fortify these homes in Florida to make them more wind resistant to the natural events that happen with the hurricanes. Obviously in South Florida, we have Hurricane Alley, we've got floods. Last year we had tornadoes. So I think any possible exposure other than possibly, a blizzard, Florida has been in the crosshairs of Mother Nature the past couple decades. And being in Florida, if you can make it as an insurance agent in Florida, I can promise you can make it anywhere in the country. We have to deal with 17 different companies, on the homeowners insurance side, because Allstate does not write property in the state of Florida. So we have to broker a lot of the things that we want to write for customers with other carriers, which is fine. But you can imagine trying to manage 17 different underwriting requirements, 17 different applications, 17 different logins just for homeowners. And then you get into, flood insurance and general liability and excess liability. So you almost have to have a degree in calculus to be able to figure out how to run an agency in Florida. But there's a flip side to that. The flip side to that is we've got flexibility and we've got options for our consumers. So if we have situations that come up where, premiums increase or a customer is unhappy with a particular, insurance carrier, we've got the ability to pivot and reshop that customer and find out what's the best, particular policy, not necessarily price, but coverage for those consumers if it fits with a line in their budget and offers them the protection that's going to protect their assets and the most important asset you'll probably ever buy, which is your primary home.
Greg, I love the answer. And you spelled that out so well, the broad scope of what it is to do insurance business in the state of Florida and all the companies you represent. So part of our common bond is that we're both captive insurance agents, but I often think of myself as a broker. You're operating more as an independent agent and broker within the scope of the Allstate opportunity. How do you think of yourself? Do you think of yourself as a broker?
Yeah, I mean, everything we do, we don't brand ourselves as the Greg Blanchard Allstate agency. We're the Greg Blanchard Insurance Agency. And I think I'll be an agent 18 years in November, but I think what I've learned over is that you actually have to build your brand. Even though Allstate's a nice badge of honor you can carry, this person in the mirror is the person that represents your brand. So you have to do it with integrity. You have to be in the community. You have to make sure that you're serving your customers, correctly. And that's kind of what our core focus has been, is to have a small town feel, but to have a big, big net to go out there and capture, a lot of business based on, referrals and all the different types of marketing techniques that we utilize to be able to expose the agency and what we can do for customers on a daily basis.
I love it. Greg, I think of you as the king of direct mail. Amongst many other marketing things, you're absolutely one of the leaders in the country that's taught many and mentored many of us how to do the direct mail game. So I would love to know how much you're still leaning into direct mail and how much you're dividing your marketing and perhaps including some digital techniques these days.
Yeah. So, we've been doing direct mail for, probably 15 years now. For a while there, early on, everybody was doing direct mail. So things could get clouded. I remember customers telling me they've got, a direct mail piece from 7 different agents. So sometimes can get, colluded. However, I think during COVID, everybody put the brakes, on that, except for Florida, because Florida was wide open during COVID. Um, so that was our opportunity. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. But that was our opportunity to continue to perpetuate, our marketing spend. Although we did scale it back because of the conditions that were going on in the world at that time. And unlike a lot of businesses out there, everybody needs insurance. So we continue to spend in that particular space. We've got a very good mail marketing, I think, structure, and we have a process that's been very successful for us. We probably mail, 35,000 pieces a month now. We used to be probably at a high around 80,000 pieces, but obviously you have to make tweaks and the business environment changes. But that's just it. I think you have to keep abreast of what your data is telling you, and to be honest with your teammates, for them to give you feedback on what the data looks like when it comes back. Are you fishing in the right hole? Or is that the customer that you actually want, or you're spinning your wheels on a prospect that maybe not fit for our marketplace? And then you actually have to go back and crunch the numbers. What does the spend look like? What's the ROI? What's the cost of acquisition? The way that we do our direct mail piece, it hasn't changed over the years, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's a legacy type of a technique, is because this mug here, people just see it all the time on billboards, and they see it at the baseball stadium, and they see it on social media, and I see it on advertisement in our gym. So a lot of people come up to me and they're like, hey, Greg, you're my insurance agent. It's like, great. I have no idea who you are. But thank you for your business. I appreciate that. We've got over 19,000 customers in our book of business now, so you can imagine, we've got a pretty big penetration in our state. And we just use technology. We use a QR code. If customers don't want to call in and they want to get a quote over the weekend, they have a QR code. They can scan it. It goes right into a jot form. That jot form is pushed into our quoting platform, and it's automatically quoted for our particular consumers. So it's a very automated process, so that we can be very, very efficient with the volume we have coming into our agency.
Greg, I love that. I love that you have kept the main thing, but you've integrated technology with QR codes, with jot forms, with social media. So the idea, the target marketing process is still the same. You've just become modern day by introducing those things with it as well. Greg, let's talk about getting into the insurance business in the state of Florida. I hear 220 license, I hear 440 license. How hard is it for someone that's listening to this podcast? How long does it take? How much does it cost to get your license and maybe to pursue a great career in insurance like you and I have?
Yeah. So in the state of Florida, again, Florida is different than any other place in the marketplace, except for maybe California and New York. No offense to you guys. I've got a daughter that lives in California, as you know, Kevin. But it's 200 hours to get your 220, which is your general lines agent license. You do have to take a state exam, which is a sit-down exam that's given by the state. That takes, like I said, about 200 hours to complete that particular course. If you want to fast track that, obviously you can go into an instructor-led webinar that can lead you through that course through the entire week. It's a 6-day course. You're off on Sunday. And then we encourage everybody to go ahead and get the cram and take the test on Monday. So that's kind of with the way that we fast track our candidates. And the 220, what it does is it gives you the availability to not only sell in Florida, but gives you the ability to have a reciprocal license in other states. If you choose to get appointed in another state, it's only $50. And it'll be recognized in any other state in the union, which is kind of it's a sweet spot for us because we have a pretty big reach. We're licensed in 9 states. So we do business outside of Florida. But the other license you can get, which is pretty much a 3-day course, it's called the 440 license. That probably is, I think it's probably in total 42 hours with the cram. And that allows you to take the state test and sit for the state test. But you don't have the ability to work from home and you have to work inside the agency. Whereas if you're a 220, you've got the ability to work from remote from home and you don't have to be underneath a principal. But the 440 license, you do need to have. It's a pretty easy barrier to entry. But if you're coming to work for me, we would require the 220 license. Number one, because it gives you the independence to be able to work for remote. But number two, you can sell in multiple states.
I love it. So, Greg, 19,000 customers. You have a massive staff, but I also know that you're constantly recruiting and hiring. What do you look for in a good candidate? What does someone have to have the opportunity to work for the Greg Blanchard Agency?
Yeah, Kevin, like you, I've probably interviewed 5,000 to 7,000 people in my career in insurance, and there's things that show up, are pretty much the same. Do they reply back, to the posting that you have for a job interview? Are they communicating effectively? When you get with them on the phone, can they articulate themselves correctly? Could you close your eyes and see yourself buying from that particular individual? How does their voice inflection? Are they crisp with their words? Are they clear? Is the language and the structure correct? So all those things are very important because 99% of our business is done on the phone. The other thing I try to look for, and this is for my agency, I try to find people that used to be involved in athletics, either the gym or college sports, because we found, or even the military for that matter, we found that holding yourself accountable and to have grit and structure and discipline really serves you well in sales in general, because you're going to get a lot more no's than you're going to get yeses. So it's your ability to take rejection and understand what your numbers are. So we try to look for athletes, and before we even speak to somebody, we give them a job description of the opportunity, and everybody gets an assessment. And the assessment, there's no right or wrong answers to the assessment itself. It takes about 15 minutes to do. And we just want the candidate to answer the questions on the assessment freely, and don't try to trick the system because it's going to know.
Yeah.
And based on the results of those assessments is how we, go to the next process of the interview stage, with one of our team members or our managers.
Greg, I love everything that you said, and I love your emphasis on athletes and military background. Had this conversation with my son this morning. One of the things that people learn from playing sports is how to lose properly. And in this business, unfortunately, we lose a lot. You can have a fantastic closing ratio, 20%, 25%, 30%, 40% if you're in Ohio. But even then, you're going to lose. You are going to have a losing record when it comes to prospecting and selling. So you have to hear no a lot, and you have to recover and quickly move on to the next thing. What would you say about that with your propensity for athletes? Do you find that they're better in recovering from no and they don't take it as personally and just move on to the next thing?
Yeah, it's like, did Babe Ruth bat 1,000? No. Did the greatest hitter bat 700? Nope. Right? They're 350, 380. That's kind of what you're looking at. So, you're going to strike out more often than you're going to get on base, right? So it's that mindset, and to be able to understand that there's going to be, peaks and valleys inside your professional career, but it's your availability, like the go for no people say, you're going to get 21 no's before you get the 22nd yes. So, you just have to stay in it. And I think above anything, it's grit. You have to have grit.
I like that word. I love that word, having grit. Greg, we're bouncing around a lot of insurance. I want to actually one more insurance question. Then we're going to get into some of the stuff you do in the community and your leadership. I'd be remiss if I didn't go there. But Florida, 1992 to present, Give me an example of maybe one storm that stood out where you had people covered the right way, and because they got insurance from the Greg Blanchard agency, they were able to get their lives back to normal sooner versus later if they didn't have insurance with you.
Yeah, I mean, just think about what happened. I think was it last year on the West Coast with Fort Myers and the floods that they got.
Yeah,
Nobody anticipated to see the level of flooding that they got over there. We push flood insurance even when customers say, "Well, I'm not in a flood zone where it's never flooded here." We learned our lesson there. You guys learned your lesson with Sandy. Now
yeah,
look at what happened in North Carolina. The
yeah,
North Carolina in the mountains got flooded.
yes,
And unfortunately, a lot of those people that had residences there, they were generational homes that maybe never had a mortgage, and
yeah,
nobody ever thought to educate them about the importance of flood insurance because they had a river that would crest at 32 feet. Guess what? It crested at 37 feet, and we
yeah.
saw the devastation that took place in North Carolina. So I think us specifically, we had a lot more claims from flood insurance on the West Coast than we had in a hurricane loss probably in the past 7 years combined. Quite
Wow.
frankly, we see more losses due to flood insurance than any other peril since I've opened my agency.
And that's huge. And thank God for you and leading with flood insurance, no matter where you are. Fort Myers was a surprise to everyone. Asheville, North Carolina was a surprise. Um, Greg, 9 states. I knew about South Carolina. What are the other states that you're in?
Yeah. So Kevin, you probably don't know this, but we've been a top commercial producer in the company,
Yes,
for 7 years running.
yes.
We just finished. We're 14th in the company, actually in 2024. So we make that, probably 15% of our business because it gives us the flexibility to be able to drive, some higher end ticket premiums for commercial customers that are otherwise really not served properly. If you think about the small to
Yes.
medium sized business, most of those businesses are overlooked, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not big enough. They don't have enough premium on the books for them to have an accounted, a dedicated agent. Some are, but not all of them. And most of them just need that personal touch. And they're quite frankly, they're a lot of maintenance. But we decided, a long time ago to put our foot on the gas with that and to be able to develop that niche. But what happened was, if you remember, I think it was 5 years ago, if you were a top commercial producer, you were allowed to sell with Allstate in other states
Yes.
commercial business because at that time they were putting the carrot out there to be able to sell in different states to be able to grow the book of business. So luckily we were able to get licensed in, seven additional states. I mean, we have an office, as we talked about before, in South Carolina, but we're in Texas. Believe it or not, we're in Hawaii because we have an employee in Hawaii,
Nice.
Arizona, Tennessee. We're in a lot more in Pennsylvania. So we've got, the ability to sell referral business from those footprints. We don't actively market in those states, but if we have referral business that comes into those states, we can certainly write it. And, I think, in my opinion, you'll see Allstate be a little bit more flexible in the upcoming years with footprints and how they have allowed us to, merge offices. And it's not really now about where you're at, it's how you can get the reach out there. So I like the flexibility that Allstate's encouraging agents to grow with and give us, more of a bigger net to catch with. Because the reason why I went to South Carolina is because, Florida got really, really difficult. It got really, really tough. And if I was going to be able to grow the way that I wanted to grow, we needed to be in other states. So the South Carolina office is in Clemson, and it's a border state. So that picked up North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia for us to be able to offer products and services to the Greg Blanchard Insurance Agency.
I love it. And I love the thinking and the expansion. I just think there's so many wonderful agents that have the capacity to operate multiple levels, multiple niches. And I think it's a forward way of thinking to grow your business and to never get myopic in your view in terms of what happens in your particular state. There's so many ways to do it. After you get over the shock of some of the changes, you just have to mentally pivot and accept that your cheese has been moved and move on to the next thing. Greg, let's talk about the community. You are not just running a wonderful business, you are spending considerable time giving back, helping the community. I see Feeding South Florida, Florida Youth Soccer, Kids Community, Place of Hope. American Red Cross, Ronald McDonald House, Little Smiles, Habitat for Humanity. Talk to me. What jumps out to you, and probably 10 more that you didn't have a chance to update on your website. But talk to me about some of the passion products and what you love about giving back to the community and using this Allstate platform to do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can give back to the community. Obviously, with the Helping Hands grant with Allstate, we've got the ability to match some funds and go ahead and um, do unto others which we would want things to do upon us. And it's a giver's gain philosophy. So my wife is participating. that's respectful, and the people have the opportunity to be the best that they can be, because we hold our people to a very, very high standard of excellence. And the way that this team runs together, it's definitely a culture fit, and we want to make sure that we're providing equal opportunity for everybody. But you have to be able to sit on the bus with this team, or you're going to be left at the station.
Greg, I just love it, man. I love the connectivity you drew between Justin. Shout out to Justin. Looking forward to having Justin on the show as well. But I love the connectivity you drew between body, being, balance, and business, and linking that to the standard that you hold your team to, because you have to walk it like you talk it. You have to be the leader that people want to follow, because you're creating something for them. So I think that's phenomenal. With that sort of leadership, how does that make your team respond to you when they know that you're living a purpose-driven life? You've created a purpose-driven business that's not just for you, but to create opportunities for them. How does that impact your longevity of employees, how people stay with you? Because many of our peers, maybe some of the newer agents, even tenured agents, they struggle with finding people, onboarding, and keeping people. But I think one of the great separators of that is leadership. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think that, you have to get in the boat and row the oars with them. You can't have an ego complex or think that, that's not your job, right? Once they see me digging in and, doing all the things that I do by leading by example, I mean, that catches like wildfire. And once a team has confidence that you're going to lead them in the right direction and look out for them, but be firm but fair, and when they need a kick in the tushy, you give them a kick in the tushy. Right? I mean, that's just the way it's got to be. I mean, it can't always be, unicorns and rainbows, but I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is holding people if you hold people accountable, they're going to respect you more than you could possibly imagine, because you're holding them to a higher standard than they're holding them to themselves. So I think introspectively, when you take a look at that and you break it down, that creates trust. And if you don't have trust, you don't have a team.
You don't have anything at all. I love accountability. Everybody says they want to be held accountable until it's time to do accountability things. So I love your emphasis there. And I do think people want to be held to a higher standard. It doesn't matter how well we're doing or we're not. I want to be better than I am today. And I love associating myself with people that hold me to the next level, that don't say, Kev, things are great. Why don't you just chill right here? I love telling people, and I've told people much further along economically in life than I am, that there's no such place called then I'm a chill. That's not a place,
Yeah.
Then I'm a chill is not a place. There is no chill place. At 19,000 customers and whatever that is in value, you're not chilling at this point, are you?
Oh no, like we
working harder than ever.
Yeah, I mean I wouldn't say harder, just smarter than ever, right? We have systems, we got processes in place. Kevin, we run on the EOS operating model. That right there, that structure in itself perpetually takes care of, what we need to do in the team, and it holds the leadership accountable for each other. So again, I don't think anything is perfect. I think it's through failing a lot and making some really, really inexperienced decisions. I wouldn't say stupid decisions, because there's a lot of people out there that can't be an entrepreneur, Kevin. There's a lot of people that can't jump, and that's okay, because not everybody's going to be a leader. That's okay. But those of the people that are trying to jump and create something literally out of nothing, it takes a lot of courage to be able to do that.
It absolutely does. Greg, you have been beyond phenomenal. I knew we would have fun. There's no difference if we run into each other at a conference, wherever we are. Yeah. We just talk, we just kick it. We have a great time. Today was no different. Couple of landing questions before we land the plane. Number one, with all that you do and all that you serve through your customers, your agency, the community, how does Greg Blanchard wind down at the end of the day? How do you decompress?
Kevin, I've been addicted to pickleball for 3 years now.
Nice.
And I invested in a company that, is building 11 pickleball locations in Florida. It's the fastest growing sport in the country. Everybody's playing it, and it's with 4 people. It's social, and I wind up writing most of the people's insurance. So not only am I using this like a mini golf course, because to me, golf is so boring, But I love playing pickleball because it's outside. I'm getting exercise. And when I'm on the pickleball courts, I don't think about anything else but where I'm at in the game. It's the best. I love it. I love it.
Greg, it
And,
throws
and of
me
course,
for a
date
loop.
nights with Jennifer, of course.
Greg, I love pickleball. I played once. It threw me for a loop. As a New York kid, I grew up playing handball. So I
Uh-huh.
brought that mindset onto the pickleball court, but I was wrong. I did not get used to the ball not having any air. I
Uh-huh.
ran way too much and I paid a lot for it the next day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why the orthopedic surgeons are so rich now with all these injuries with everybody over 50, right?
I love it. I love it. I love it. Greg, this is the Wind Down with Kev podcast, the Dream Chaser podcast. So I want you to give some encouraging words to my listeners, anyone out there that's chasing a dream, maybe having a hard time with it, maybe they're stuck, they've run into an obstacle. I would love for you to close with some comments and encouraging words.
Yeah. I mean, for me, what set my entrepreneur spirit on fire is, number one, I had a mentor. I was very fortunate at one of my telecommunication jobs to have somebody that saw something in me that he recognized as grit. And, it's funny. I just talked to him when I was up in your neck of the woods in New York 2 weeks ago. We had a good conversation together. And, a mentorship is everything. If you don't have one, seek one out. They're out there. If you have to have the ability to ask, right? Mentorship, and also be coachable. You have to be a student of the game. You have to be open to constructive criticism, and you have to be open to adaptability, because everything, the generation that we're living in, is moving at light speed, and you have to be able to, what I call, live in the slipstream, because things are moving at millennial light speeds, and those people are going to survive in tomorrow is going to be revolving around technology, AI, integration, those forward thinking entrepreneurs out there that are doing some really incredible stuff. But at the end of the day, the product has to solve a problem. So if you're not in the business of problem solving, you're not going to make a lot of money. And I know money isn't the root of all evil, but it sure does help when you're riding on a boat in South Florida with the sunshine at 85 degrees, cranking your stereo and having a cup and cool ones, right?
I love it. I love it. Greg, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Wonderful words of encouragement for everybody out there listening. Thank you for tuning in, taking time out of your busy day to hear another episode of Wind Down with Kev. If you like the content that you heard here, please click on the link below, subscribe, hit that notification button so you can hear more great content just like this. Big thank you to my sponsors, Carol Media and Canopy Connect. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm Wind Down with Kev thank you to a phenomenal guest, Greg Blanchard.